Okay, so one of the things I want to share with everybody is if you're struggling with some of your high school classes, like your algebra, trig, algebra 1, 2, geometry, on our website, under quick links, there is need help with math. And Mr. Shade is there, the one who helped us with our graphics literacy and our reading comprehension. He has this website, and you can go out there and you can look up videos that he has put out there under Algebra 2, Geometry. And if you've got a question, you can type in your name and you can ask him a question. There's Geometry, and then there's even some ACT prep. So if you look through that, you may be able to find, and I was showing Stephanie, he's got topics out here, exponential functions, logarithmic functions, graphing inequalities. So all of that is great to me. It has been too many years since I've done that, but you guys are in it right now. So if you have a question, struggling with a problem, shoot him a message. He has texted us and asked us to please remind students that that is available. And so I have now made you guys aware under quick links that that's accessible to you, and he would love to help you. As I've said before, he has taken some of my previous students and said they've learned more in 15 minutes with him than they've learned in a whole year at their high school. So check that out. If you need help, email him. It's kshade@southerntech.edu, and so he will be happy to help if that's something that would help any of you guys. All righty. So today, prior to class, Brecken just joined us. Good morning, Brecken. Today, prior to class, your lesson 1 activity, your chapter 2 activity, your chapter 1 quiz, and your chapter 2 quiz were all due before class this morning. I had about half turn those in. So I do not want to go in and give zeros. I don't want this to be a penalty thing. I want you guys to get those taken, get them done. So please get out there today. I will close them this afternoon. I'm not going to extend it past today because we're moving into chapter 3 and I don't want that to slow down. So if you are struggling with any of the activities in chapter 1 or chapter 2, please stay after and let me answer those questions so that you can get those activities done. Okay, the quiz from 1, the quiz from 2, the activities from 1 and 2 are all due today. And then I will close those assignments. Today, we are going to start looking at chapter 3. And chapter 3, we get into basically keyframing. And so this should be something that is fairly comfortable for you guys because we've already done it in Final Cut. And so I'm going to show you. Okay, can you guys see the movie poster? Yes, no?
Nope.
No, okay.
Miss Stevens, when I was doing the chapter 2 quiz, I was having trouble submitting it. So like, I was going to see if I submitted it or not.
Okay.
If you could check it.
Okay, I'll check that when we get to the end. Remind me. Okay, so here is what we're working towards in chapter 3. It's creating what I call a dynamic movie poster or a movie trailer type project. And so this is where we're headed. This is the end product. So you can watch this. Notice how the cityscape comes up. They're there and she's behind him and they move. The cars come in. And then we have the lower third coming up down here at the bottom with the title. Okay. Look pretty cool? Look like an interesting project to make?
Yes.
I know y'all are just dying to get started on that. So what there's nothing like teaching a class and having your mom in the class too. That's just pretty weird.
I'm proud of you,
My
darling.
mom's sitting back here laughing at me while I'm talking.
I'm proud of you, darling.
So here we go. We're going to talk about how to make this and how to use keyframes. And I feel like you guys are all going to pick up on this pretty quickly. If you remember in chapter 2, we talked about turning objects into symbols. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Do we remember that? I need some communication.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yes, indeedy.
Okay. So we learned that there are 3 different symbols. There's the movie clip, the button, and what else?
That other one that I can't remember.
Do what?
That other one that I cannot remember.
The other one.
I
you
literally
can't-
only remember the button and the movie clip.
How about graphic?
That one, yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Okay. So which one gives us the most option to control?
Wasn't it button?
Wasn't it what?
Button?
No. Button only allows us, if you think web pages, you know how when you click on a button and it highlights or looks like it's been clicked? That's
Yeah.
what button allows you to do. Just add some very basic things like that to it. So what's your next guess?
Movie clip.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Woo, movie clip. Okay. So movie clip is the one that gives us the opportunity for interactivity, to customize, to create motion with, and all of that. Another thing that we're going to look at in chapter 3 is called tweening. Tweening is just short for in between. Okay. So when we say tweening, basically, okay, here's a pop quiz. How many of you watched the 12 steps of animation?
I did.
Who said that?
I did.
I don't know who's answering because I can't see faces except Kyle.
I don't remember if I did or not.
Okay, it talked about squash and stretch, ease in, ease out. Overlapping and action. Woo, my brain is a little blank this morning. And so the diving board, they bounced off the diving board, so it was frames and in between keyframes. Hate it when I can't think this morning. Just a minute. Straight ahead and pose to pose.
Hey guys, so I sure to time it right, so if we know this is the soda, then reaches for it. Now the idea is very clear. All right, so the fourth animation.
Okay, so I'm going to show you this video. So watch this video with me, because this is going to kind of lay the foundation for what we're going to do today. Can everybody see the full screen?
Kind of.
12 principles of animation.
Oh, there it goes. Yes.
Principle is called straight ahead and pose to pose. This term describes 2 methods used to animate drawings. The first method, straight ahead, is where you draw the first drawing, and then you draw the second drawing, and then the third drawing, and so on. It's basically animating as you go.
Okay, so can y'all hear him talking?
Yes.
Okay, he's talking about pose to pose. And so how many of you have ever made one of those little flip books? You draw a picture on a page and then you flip the page and you draw the next basic movement and then you staple it all together and you flip it and it looks like they're moving. Has anybody done that?
Yes.
Isaac?
What?
Have you made one of those little flip books?
No.
No. Carlos?
No, I skipped that part.
You of all people, I thought the answer would have been yes.
I know, me too, but like,
Okay, well, pose to pose is where you draw every individual movement. Okay? And so straight ahead,
The second method, pose to pose, is where you draw the beginning and end of each main pose and go back later to fill in the drawings in between. So there are benefits to both methods. Pose to pose.
I'm sorry. That one was straight ahead. The pose to pose is where you draw the beginning, middle, and an ending. Okay?
It's basically animating as you go. The second method, pose to pose, is where you draw the beginning and end of each main pose and go back later to fill in the.
Okay, so when you go back later and fill in those in-betweens to kind of complete the motion or to refine the motion, that's called tweening. Okay, it's the in-betweens, tweening. Make sense?
yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. And so what's nice about that in Animate and in some of the animation softwares is animation softwares have become so intuitive that if you draw the beginning, middle, and ending or any keyframe therein, it will create, through mathematics, it will create the animation that takes an arm from here to here without you having to draw each individual one. Is that not phenomenal? I mean, you can
That's
draw.
amazing.
Do what?
That's amazing.
It is. So instead of you drawing 500 images, Carlos, you can draw 50 and let it build in the in-betweens. So that's awesome. Okay. And so for those of you who haven't made those little flip books in the past, you have missed out on a ton of fun. And if we were in class, maybe I should still have y'all do that.
Oh, no.
No.
Yes. Or at least have like a stop motion.
Yes. I think
I have a stop motion.
you have a
I have
stop.
Yeah, that's already on my computer. If you look through my files, there's a stop motion sticky note folder.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't count.
Yes, it does. I don't want.
No.
What?
I tell you what, we're going to do that. Makes you think through some things. Okay.
No.
That assignment's forthcoming. Because typically in class, when we watch the 12 stages of animation, I actually have the students draw. And if I get a chance to get back to campus, I've got some up on top of y'all's mailboxes in those metal trays up there from previous students where we created the flip books. And so usually I have students do that assignment. Just because of our situation this year, I didn't do that, but I think I will. And it will be hand drawn, so it's not something you need a computer for. Then you can hold it up in class and you can flip it and you can show us. All right, so getting back to animation and tweening, what we're going to look at in chapter 3 is interpolation. Interpolation happens a couple of different ways. It's a funny word. It's not one you hear about a lot, but there is spatial interpolation and there's temporal interpolation. And interpolation just means, hey, computer, do the math for me. That's what that means. It's a wonderful thing, okay? And so that's what happens with that thing. So in spatial interpolation, that is the movement of an object across space. Spatial interpolation is the movement of an object across space. Temporal interpolation is the movement of an object across time. Well, if we keyframe something, what are we doing? That was a question to be answered. I'm waiting.
Oh, wait, what was the question?
Ding, ding, ding.
If we keyframe something, what are we doing? When you keyframe something in Final Cut, what did you do with that object?
He framed it.
What does that mean?
It means it's gonna move from one place to another.
So is that spatial or temporal?
I'm gonna go with temporal.
You're going to go what?
I'm gonna go with temporal.
Temporal. Okay. Did it happen over a span of time?
Probably. Yes.
Yes. Then it would be temporal. If it happened across the space on your screen, that would be spatial. If they happen simultaneously, you got both. So let's watch this video again. Okay. So notice these cars, they are moving across space. They're moving from back to forward, and it's happening over time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that is actually doing both. The lower third down here, the icons, logos, whatever we got going on down here, those are happening over time, but not space. Let's see. So you notice they're not down there, but then the opacity of them kicks up. Okay, so there's no spatial interpolation happening there with the information down here at the bottom. There's no spatial, it's all happening right where it's at. But it is happening over time, which makes it a temporal interpolation. Does that help? I love that somebody's drawing on my screen. Okay, so I'm going to come back here to the front because the first thing we're going to look at is the cityscape. You see the cityscape moving up in the background?
Yep.
Okay, so that's happening over time and space. So as the playhead moves forward over time, over frames, it is moving over time, so temporal, and it is also moving in space. It is moving up in its environment. So you got spatial and temporal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All righty. So those interpolation is a word that we don't use every day. Temporal and spatial are also words we don't use every day. But spatial just means space. Temporal, temporary, means time. Temporal, I don't know if y'all can understand my enunciation through this, but temporal means time, spatial means space. And so we are just moving it, but we are letting the computer calculate it, which is what we've done all year long when we've keyframed something. And we talked about that when we first started talking about keyframes back in Final Cut. Okay, so when we keyframe something, we're telling the computer at this frame, I want you to be here. And then by this frame, wherever that is, I want you to be there. And we've let, all year long, we've let the computer calculate what happens to get from point A to point B, haven't we?
Yep.
Okay, so we're not doing anything different here in Animate. So here we go. We're going to continue to look at this. I'm going to play this one more time. So watch the movements that are happening. The cityscape goes up. The guy kind of slides to the right. The lady behind him moves to the left. The cars come in, 3 layers there, kind of zoom forward in depth. And then we have the title that flips in. And then we have the logos that come up in the bottom. Okay, so there's a lot of different activity going on in this particular project. And so if you guys were in Final Cut, y'all could do this no problem, but we're going to talk about animating it using Animate. If you look at the library panel, you have all of the assets that you're going to need right here. And we're going to look at how to tweak some of those. We won't get through this whole lesson today, but we'll get through the majority of it, or at least half of it, I think. And we're going to talk about how to control the keyframing of those movements. So this is where we're headed. So if you will open up your O3 start out of your files, okay? If you will open up your O3 start project, they're ever so kind to give us about half of it done. Maybe about half of it done. So I'll give you just a second to get O3 start FLA. Morning, Brecken. I don't know if I said good morning to you when you came in. Just a fair warning, on Wednesday, I want to see everybody's lovely face so I know who I'm talking to. So come to class dressed and looking gorgeous. If I got to get up and curl my hair, although it doesn't really look like it this morning. I did curl it. Just fell flat already. I'd like to see somebody's face so I know who I'm talking to. You guys all got up with bedhead this morning, apparently. Then Friday.
No, I just look awful. So
You what?
I just look awful right now because I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, Wednesday, fair warning. No, everybody can bring their own sock puppet or whatever on Friday.
Woo!
And what's his name again, Carlos?
The whale or Woodrow?
Woodrow. Woodrow. Welcome to class, Woodrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have opened,
Let's see it.
I hope, your Animate Lesson 3, and this is the start file, not the end file, okay? So down on your timeline, we've got 190 frames to work with. We don't actually kick off until frame 23. We have folders down here that have the cars in it. We have the folders with the actors. Okay, we know how to click those open and closed, right? All right, so right now we've got the guy and the girl. Well, wow, she's not blurred in this one. She's not blurred at all there, but she was blurred in the final one. So that's a filter we're going to apply here in a little bit. And here come our cars. And I'm just doing my... Yes, Brecken.
Yesterday on the ending of the lesson 2 file, you need to contact one of the companies.
Why?
Because they spelled the name wrong.
What was that?
I don't remember what it was, but I knew they spelled a name wrong in the file.
Oh, okay. All righty. I will send that email. All right. So this is what they've given us. So I'm going to play it. So we kick off at frame 23. We have the guy and the girl come in, but she's not blurred. So we know we got that. We've got our cars coming in. Whoops, there's only 2, not the third one. We don't have the city in the background. And we don't have...
we have a shadow.
Yeah, we just have the ground and the logos down there. So we've got some work to do on this. So starting here, one of the first things we're going to do is add in the city. So down here above footer, actually I'm going to lock all my layers down. So I can do all of that just by clicking the lock. Or I can click the I at the top to hide all of those layers. I don't really want to hide them, but I do want to lock the layers that we have. So that's just a quick tip. By clicking that lock at the top, you can easily lock all your layers down so nothing else moves that you don't want to move by accident. Okay, and then I'm going to add a new layer. Whoops, not there. I'm going to click on footer. And what's going to happen is whatever layer I'm on, if you didn't catch this in lesson 2, whatever layer I'm on, it's going to add the new layer above that. So you can always be assured that by default, it's going to add it above that. And so you have a file in your library called CityBG. And so CityBG, whoops, add my new layer. There it is right there. And I'm going to double click on it and call it City. And I'm going to bring my CityBG onto my stage. Okay.
How did you open that file menu?
What file menu?
To the right of it, is the asset already in the
library?
Yeah.
If you are, did you open up your 03 start file?
Yeah, City Beachy JPEG. I found it.
Okay. Yeah, it might have been under car bitmaps if you had that collapsed or whatever, or it's the next one down.
Yeah, I'm having the same problem I was having last night. It won't let me send it to the back. It won't let me put it behind the background, like in the background.
Well, it depends on where you put it in your stack of videos here on the left, down in your timeline.
Right. It's at the very top.
Okay, so you want to delete that layer, or actually you can click on that layer. Can you see my screen? So I've got the middle car here. I can take that middle car, and do you see that black line that's following me? Wherever I drop that black line, that's where it's going to go. So you can take it if it was at the top, and you can drag it down above footer. Does everybody see that? Because I can take the man and move him up here into the folder with the cars.
Oh, okay.
Or I can click him and I can move him to the very top and he becomes his own object.
Okay, so the layer does matter. I didn't know
The
that.
layer does matter. Okay. Just like in Final Cut, whatever's on top is what gets seen, right? So that hasn't changed in here. Whatever's on top is what's going to happen in front of whatever else. Okay.
All right, that makes sense.
Hello.
Morning, Brecken. Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the city right above footer. And so now if I look at this, the city's there, it doesn't move. We've dropped it in, and then we have the guy and girl come in on top of that, and then we have the cars come in. And so you can tell that the city, excuse me, is behind those layers. So in essence to what Mason just said, yes, the layers do matter. If you have any experience in Photoshop, that also goes into play here. But really, it's not any different than your timeline in Final Cut. In Final Cut, what we had in order and what was on top was what was seen, and that the same rule applies here, okay? So nothing changes about that. So with the city, what we're gonna do is, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow the book, so okay, so we're also going to be looking in our properties panel once we've got the city here, because we're going to create that movement from where it is and move it up the screen a little bit. And so that's the animation that we're adding in here. So we've added the cityscape to it. In the properties panel, let's see, where am I at? Okay, back here at the very beginning. We're going to set the properties panel. And you have to have the city on the screen selected. That's what I was missing. Okay. If I'm not clicked on the city, my properties tab looks different. Okay. Brecken, what do you have in front of your face? Oh, okay. Okay. So in the properties panel, if I click on the city, I get a different properties panel. If I'm on the background, I got a different properties panel. So as you're working through here, you want to make sure that you know you're on the right layer. And so we're going to set this Okay, we're gonna set this at 0 for the X and 90 for the Y. Okay, and so the Y is the vertical, the X is the horizontal. So if I make X 50, you can see it shifts it over. I can also just click over that and drag, if you can see my arrows. So I can click and drag, or I can click on the city here on my stage and move it around. So you've got lots of different ways to accomplish your goal. But if you want to be very specific, just typing it over here into the properties panel gets you exactly where they're expecting you to be. Okay, so on frame 1, we have it set to 0 and 90. All right, that's not the only thing we're going to do to this, because right now what we want to do is we want to tell the computer, hey, I'm fixing to create a movement with this object. So remember we talked about tweening a while ago? You're telling the computer, hey, I want you to figure out what the in-between should be. So tweening. So we're going to right click on this image, and right at the very top, we get the option to create a motion tween. So we're telling the computer right now, hey, you figure out the in-betweens. So create a motion tween, and it says, hey, it must be converted to a symbol. Well, I'm going to cancel that because I want to go back and look at something for a second with you, but you guys can stay right there on your screen. So when I look at this city BG JPEG in your library panel, I want you to notice a few things in your library panel, okay? Just look with me. You don't have to do this along with me, but just look with me on my screen. So right now, you notice it looks like a picture, a JPEG icon. Look at the icons. So we have a folder, we have a picture, and then as you look down here on the bottom, back, car left, car middle, you notice that it has these other looks to it, and then car middle base, okay? So these are the differences between a graphic symbol and a movie symbol. Car middle base is a graphic symbol. Car middle, car left, bottom, back is a movie symbol. Can y'all see the difference? Okay, so we're going to create this as a symbol. And so while it's on here, I'm going to right click, and I just wanted to draw your attention so you would learn to look at those icons to know what you're working with. Right now we're working with just a JPEG photo. We want to change that to a symbol so that we can create that motion with it, so that the computer will know to do the tweening with us. So that's what's happening. So create motion tween. It says, hey, you must convert this, and you say, okay. So now if you look down at the bottom in my library, I now have a symbol 1 movie symbol, okay? I can right click on that and choose rename, and I can name that city so that I know what that is versus symbol 1. Because symbol 1 doesn't mean anything to me. So you can right click and rename, okay? And that helps. So on frame 1, I'm right here at 0 and 90. Is everybody with me? Right here at 0 and 90. Well, there's 190 frames, 191, excuse me, in here. And so what I want to do is I want by frame 191, I want the Y value here to be 0. Okay, make sure you still have the city. Whoops, got to add a keyframe.
Starting today.
Okay, so I'm going to hold my shift key down, and I'm going to move this up to 0. And I'm looking at my position and size over here. So 0 to 0.
Just show up Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when I do
Sorry
that,
about that, but
there is a little keyframe that gets added to frame 191 on my city. Okay, because I just changed the location.
Okay, Will, thanks for the call.
So we created a motion tween with the cityscape. We started it at X0, Y90. And so it was kind of in the middle of our screen. We told it to create this as a motion tween. So it's going to do the calculation from 090 all the way to 00 as I play it. So I'm going to come back here to the beginning. Okay. And so you see this purple line here? It's just telling me that, hey, that's moving. Look how slowly that city's moving. We didn't move it that far. And so the computer's doing the calculations on how fast it's got to move to get from point A to point B over 191 frames. Make sense to everybody?
No, I'm lost. What did you click to do that?
I just clicked on the city stage, on the city, excuse me, on the stage. First, I clicked on frame 191, or went to the very end of the frames. Okay. And then I moved the cityscape up to the top of the frame. That's all I did. So let me back up. Okay, I'm going to start back over.
All right.
I didn't realize I'd clicked that much stuff. Okay, from the beginning. In my library, I had the city. And so I was sitting on frame 1, and I brought the city to the stage. Oh, hang on. I have to add a layer. Didn't do that. New layer. Remember, a new layer always gets added on top. I'm going to name that layer city. Okay, so now I'm there. I'm going to bring the city to the stage. Didn't have a layer to put it on, so it didn't count. Okay, so right now my city is there. All right. So then I'm going to go down here. Basically what I did was clicked on frame 191. Whoops. Go back to frame 1. Got ahead of myself. Okay, here I want this position with the handles around it to be at 0 and 90. You must have the object you want to set the properties to selected. You must have the object you want to set the properties to selected. So if I click on the background, I get one set of properties. If I click on the cityscape, I get a different set of properties. If I had text here and I clicked on it, I would get different properties. So whatever object you're dealing with, you have to have the handles around it to set properties for it. So on frame 1, I've got it 0 and 90. Then I'm gonna, then on my timeline, I'm gonna scroll down. There we go, get in the right spot. And I'm gonna scroll down to the very end to frame 191. Click on my cityscape, and I'm just moving it up to the top of the frame. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. See, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, I need to right click on that and tell it I want to create motion tween, and it converts it to a symbol. So now I have that symbol 1. I'm going to rename it as city. Okay, so that later I know what I'm doing with that, because now I know what it's called instead of symbol 1. So now on frame 191, now that I have it as a symbol and I have created motion tweening, I can move it up, and it can now create all of those in between frames because I told it to create the motion tween. And I gave it a starting point back on frame 1. And on frame 191, I told it, here's where I want it to end up. Does that make sense?
Don't get any answers.
I know. I got Carlos's head shake.
Did you? I want to know, like, how. So I clicked on the front frame, and then I did the I turned it into a symbol, and then I put motion tween. I put the motion tween first, and then I made it a symbol, but it doesn't show like a purple line like it does on yours.
Okay. You have to make it the symbol first.
Yeah, that's what I did. It said I cannot make a motion tween unless this is a symbol.
Okay. I thought you said that backwards. Okay. So then did you go to frame 191?
Yes, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, on 191, move your cityscape from the center where it was at to the top of the box.
Okay, is that it?
That's it. Do you see a little dot on your timeline in frame 191, but on the city line?
Yes.
Okay, so that tells you that's your keyframe. Bless you. That tells you that's your keyframe. So then if you go back to the beginning and play it, see if you see the movement happen. It's very slow because it's 200 frames that it's making that movement happen in. Are you seeing the movement?
No, didn't play it.
Okay, I'm gonna walk through that all one more time. Okay, so that's gone. Okay, so back at the beginning, I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to call it city. Because I got to have a layer to hold my image. So back on frame 1, I'm going to bring the city BG to the stage. I'm just going to line it up right there in the middle. And it has handles around it. Okay. I'm going to set the properties for this to make sure it's at 0 and 90. That's what your book suggests. I'm just following the outline of the book so that if you go back and walk through the book, I'm not using different things that you're not seeing there. Okay. So
got it. I got it to work with Stevens.
Okay, great. So bring a layer or create a layer, bring the image to the stage, change the properties to 0 and 90. Now I'm going to right click and create a motion tween. It says, hey, you're going to turn this into a symbol. And I say, okay. Okay, at that point, now when I, whoops, come back to center stage. When I click down here on my timeline and I go to frame 191, I'm going to tell the computer, here's my new keyframe. Nothing new for you guys. Here's my new keyframe. I want the city at this point to be up here at the top. And when I do that, it puts a dot in that frame. And now I see a purple. A while ago, my line was orange. So I see a line that indicates movement. Sometimes, depending on how much movement, those lines are a little hard to see. Okay. So now when I move back, I'm not moving all the way to the beginning, but now when I play that part, you can see that my city moves just a little bit. Okay. So everybody good with that point? So the motion tween told the computer to do it from point A to point B and create whatever movement it needs in between. That's what motion tween is all about. Okay. So that, what we call that keyframe time frame from what it begins at to what it ends at, we call that a tween span. That is the span of time that you want this in between section to be moving. So a tween span. All right. I can change that time frame if I click on Shift and click on that last point. I can move that in. And so now it's, in my case right now, it's going to end at 145 or 120 now. And so when I hit play, whoops, let me get back to the beginning, stop. So now that movement happens just a little bit faster because it has to be to that point by frame 120 instead of 191. So if you move over that last frame where the key was and I get the double-sided arrow, okay, if I move that and I get the double-sided arrow, I can change the length of that tween span on my timeline. Do you see how easy that is? And so when I do that, that movement happens as fast as it needs to because the computer is doing the calculation to get it from A to B in whatever time you got that step. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to set that tween span. Your book tells you to make it to 60 and start it at 10. So again, I'm just moving to where the dots are, getting my double-sided arrow. And so now when I start, the cityscape isn't there. It starts at frame 10 and comes in and moves up, okay? Okay.
Is that the same guy from lesson 1?
No. Yes, yes it is, sorry. We didn't do an activity with him in lesson 1, we just watched it, okay?
Who's ready for school to be out?
Everybody. Okay, in your textbook, I am in lesson 3, animating symbols, and down here where it says changing the time and pacing, this is where it talks about spanning your tween frames or your tween span. And changing how you control the movement. So I highly encourage you, there's moving keyframes, which is what I was just showing you with the double-sided arrow. But then there's span-based versus frame-based selection. Right now, we are doing a span-based by me moving those frames and saying, hey, I want you to crunch that movement into this time, or I want you to extend the movement to this time. That's span-based versus frame-based. And so this gives you a really good explanation about how those keyframes get moved. And the difference between the two. So I recommend you go in and you look at that to have a better understanding of what's happening in the background. I'm not going to take the time to go into all of that right now, but feel free to go look at it because I want to go ahead and move on and show you the alpha. Okay, so animating transparency. Remember when we did the coffee cup in chapter 1? And we did the transparency on the colors. How did we do that? Voila!
You changed the opacity.
How did I do that?
I forgot because I couldn't do it last night.
By toggling the alpha
Where do I find the alpha, Carlos?
next to the color thingy.
Okay, so if I click on my cityscape here, what I really want is I want the cityscape to fade in, okay? Or go from transparent to full color, like it is now, okay? So if I click on frame 10, which is where I'm at now, and I go under my color palette, okay? No, that is not where I want to do that.
That's why windows are better.
No. Okay, if I click on my cityscape, didn't have my deal. So then when I click on cityscape, I have a color effect here. 3D position and view, position and size. We're not working on 3D yet. But then there's color effect. And right now it says style none. We want alpha. Okay. Alpha in our color panel here, we talked about being transparency or no color to full color. Okay. So that's where we did it with the coffee cup and the backgrounds. Okay. Those background waves in the project one. In here, because this is an image, we're going to use a color effect and we're going to choose alpha. And on frame 10, which is where I'm sitting in my timeline, I want it to be 0. But by frame 30, I want it to be full color. So when I play this, you see it fades in. Okay, let me do that again. So when I play that, you see the color come in. Okay, and I did that using with this clicked on color effects. I changed it from none to alpha, and I went from 0. And this one at this particular point in time where I'm at was 77, I think, because I just added a new keyframe down there because I messed with it. And it's moving up. So it's fading in and moving up. Okay. So that's using the alpha feature. And that's not under the color palette like we did with the colors that we did in lesson 1. Because we are applying this to an image, we are doing a color effect. Now, you can use that color effect to change the color of things, to change the color of an image or to tint it. You can use that for a lot of different things. But we, in our situation, we use the alpha. And again, you got to make sure you're clicked on that object to see the correct properties over here. I feel like this is the one thing that's going to bite you guys as you're working through the lesson, is forgetting to click on the object so that you get the right properties panel over here. So be careful with that. All right. Animating filters is the next thing. So do you remember the lady in the final project? She came in and she was blurred. Do you remember that? And everybody said, yes. But when we do ours, she is totally in color, totally fine. So what we're going to do is apply a filter to her. Can y'all see my screen?
No.
Okay, thank you. I realized I didn't think I had done that. Okay. I'm going to do this. So now do you see my Animate screen with my Animate book to the left?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'm just trying to go down the book so that when you guys look at this, so I'm down almost halfway through lesson 3 and we're at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to probably stop with this one. Animating filters. So I'm going to click on the woman. Okay. And I want her. Now, to get her at this point, we can't see her because she has one of those alpha keys happening. But we can see the green dots. Do you see the keyframes up here? That indicates movement. Those are keyframes because I'm clicked on the woman layer. Okay. If I'm not clicked on the woman layer, I don't see the green keyframes. Red is the guy's keyframes. Green is the girl's keyframes. And purple is the city keyframes. So that kind of helps you as you're looking at these. And if you look at the color rectangles, beside those names on the timeline, it tells you when I look at the red, that's the man. When I look at green, that's the woman. When I look at the purplish pink, that's the city. So you've got color codes to go along with that. Okay, so clicking on the woman's layer, I'm going to double click right there. Whoop. I don't want to do that. If I double click, if you notice at the top of your screen, there was scene 1 and now I'm in the symbol object of the city. I want to back up because I want to go back to scene. So sometimes that's something that can trip you up. If I've made something a symbol, it's an object in this scene, so it creates kind of another layer. So let me do that again. If I double click on city, I now see scene 1 in the top left with symbol 1. Symbol 1 is the city. I didn't rename it that last time I brought it in. So there's scene 1. I can click on scene 1 and it takes me out a level, or I can click on the arrow to the top. Okay, so I'm going to click on woman. No, I don't want that. I want the woman. Click down here. So then I can get a hold of the woman. Whoops, it helps if I'm on that layer. Quit laughing at me, mother. I can't get a hold of her.
I'm getting tickled because none of your students are responding back to you.
Oh, my students don't talk to me. Oh, I've got her locked. That's why. So I need to unlock her layer. There we go. There we go. Now I got her. But at the scene level. Okay. So when I've clicked on her, okay, I want to be careful because I don't want to be back here at the end, because wherever I'm at on her layer, that's where the filter is going to happen. And so we're about to do a filter, but I want the filter to happen at the beginning. So I've got to click, and as you can see, there's nothing in that box. So it's kind of hard to determine, hey, that's the woman. I just have to know. So when I click on that, again, just like the color effect with the alpha being over here, I'm not going to mess with the alpha this time because she's already nothing, and then she fades in. So that's already happening. What I want to do down here at the bottom is add a filter. And we did the filter with the coffee cup for the secondary coffee cup. If you remember, you were supposed to do a blur on it. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to add a blur. And I think your book has you set it at 40. I remember right. Oh, 20. Okay. But another thing to point out, your book talks about having the links locked, or the connections. Link X to Y property. These are relative connections, so that as I change the blur for X, it will change the blur for Y in the same increments. So you want to make sure that that little line is through there so that those are connected. If it's snapped open, then there's no lock happening. X is going to happen independently of Y. Say that again. If it's open, X is going to happen and Y can happen at a different rate. So if you have those little locks connected, if I change one, notice it's going to change both, and they wanted it at 20 or thereabouts. Okay. So now when I play this, blurred in the background, we don't really see her distinctly. Okay. So that's applying a filter. You got to make sure you're on the layer. Miss Stevens, you got to make sure you don't have the layer locked. That's a problem. See, I teach myself too. All right. And so I start her, although it's empty there, but her blur, we want her coming in blurred. And then we're going to go to frame. Let's see. Let me go to frame 100. And still clicking on her. I want her blur to still be at 20, and I just upped it to 21 just so it puts a keyframe there. So at that point, it's still blurred. But as I get down here to 140, I want her blur to go away. So now there's no blur. Okay. All right, so now let's go back a little ways and see. So she comes in, she's blurred, she stays blurred. At 100, I still had her blurred, but at 100 to 140, she starts to crystallize there. So now we see her fully developed. Does that make sense? Thank you, Carlos.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you doing okay?
Yes.
Brecken, Brecken, Earth to Brecken. Isaac,
Hi.
does this make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brecken. Mason, you doing okay?
Yeah. Did you not hear me?
I didn't hear you a while ago. Sorry. Kyle,
It's all good.
are you awake, Kyle, or is your head down on your desk?
Playing with my dog.
Ah, dogs. Great.
I swear, my sister's dog is like a one of those seizure service dogs. Like, you know, like when a guy is like banging their head on the floor. They
Right.
like the dog like puts themselves like right under them, so like they don't get a concussion or something like that. Because I was like trying it because she kept like, I was just laying down. She just kept getting closer and closer to my head. I was like, huh, I wonder something.
Ah, okay.
Eat that right away.
Okay. So I think I will stop there because we're already at 10:08, and we will pick up on Wednesday and we'll finish out this chapter. So this chapter, chapter 3, will be due by Friday. Okay, with the quiz. Chapter 3 will be due by Friday with the quiz, but we will finish up the chapter on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we'll look at moving that third car in and having it come in, and we will look at creating a nested animation and easing things in and out. So you guys have heard me use the stop sign example 50 million times. A car doesn't go 50 miles an hour and just get to the stop sign and instantly stop.
I do whenever I drive.
Well, Brecken, that's why your mama doesn't let you drive very much.
Hey,
Okay. Because you give her whiplash if you do that. So we ease into a stop, we ease out from a stop, that same kind of motion for the same reasons. That's very jarring when you do that to your friends, and your friends don't like you when you do that. So that's what easing is about. And then we'll talk about frame by frame animation, animating in 3D motion, and exporting your movie. Okay? So that's what we will finish up on Wednesday. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so I do want you guys to today complete project 1, project 2, quiz 1, quiz 2 if you've not done that, because tonight at midnight, those are turned off. And if something's not turned in, it becomes a 0. And as I shared with you guys last week, I believe, and I know I'm preaching to the choir because you guys have been here, but for those that are watching this recorded, those zeros are still impacting. So I don't want to do that. So please, 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 please make sure we're getting these turned in, because at midnight, that's where we're at. I got to move on, and I can't leave those grades open indefinitely. So today, finish up those. Also, I'm not sure that it impacts any of you guys, but Kyle, I got your text about the MDL. Keep working. If the rest of you have not completed that MDL certification, that was due April 15th. It needs to get done and turned in. However, understand that if you didn't like your score, or you think you've got some spare time and I can do better, then go take it again, and it will let me know that you've resubmitted for a better score, because that grade is going in like 5 times. Okay, that grade is going to impact your overall grade incredibly. One score is going in like 5 times because it's going in for PowerPoint, it's going in for Access. Stephanie, you've got a grade in there for Access. So yours is a little different, but it's going in for PowerPoint, Access, for computer security, for a couple of others that we didn't touch on during class. But if we covered it in the exam, I'm giving you that same score for each of those assignments. So I'm just trying to be transparent with you. If you go look at your grades, you're going to go, wow. If you happen to have an 82 on the exam, you've got an 82 in there 5 times. Okay? So make sure you're aware, and I'm being honest and forthright with you guys, that when you take that Microsoft certification exam, I want you to know that it's weighting heavily in that course. Okay? So if you have a chance, if you didn't like your score, if it was below an 80, you need to retake it because I'm not putting it in unless it's at least an 80 because I do not want it to hurt your grade. I want it to improve your grade. But I have to put something in there. So even if you make a lower than 80 grade for now, go ahead and upload that, and then you can always come back and make it better. But I need that done. So any questions about what I'm looking for? Microsoft 1, 2 activity, 1, 2 quiz. Done today. Today. Okay? Didn't mean to scare y'all to death. Getting too close to the camera. All right? So, and if you happen to see any of your other classmates, Ethan, Tyler, Isaiah, Miguel, Taylor, who else am I missing? I've been trying to communicate with them. I'm getting very little feedback. So if you have a connection, if you have a phone number, Stephanie, I don't know if you've got connections to Taylor, in any way that we can get a hold of them and somebody get me some information back as to what they're doing, because they're going to end up being dropped from the course. I don't have a choice if they're not participating and coming in, which means they won't return next year. So, yes, Brecken.
You can stop recording now.
No, I want them to hear this.
Oh,
Okay. So if you've got contacts with any of those folks, please get in contact with them and tell them to contact me, or else we're looking at dropping students. And I don't want to do that this late in the year. I don't want that to be 0 credit for them for this semester. I don't like that, but I've attempted to communicate. So please help me out on that end if you've got a way to connect with them. I know Ryan is working and doesn't get off till 2, so he's been catching up with the videos. So that's where we're at on that. And Caleb, I'm missing Caleb. Okay, so I hope y'all have a great,
Tyler.
I hope that you get those things done today because they go away tonight at midnight. And we will move ahead on Wednesday. And if you've got any questions, again, text me. We can go into a Zoom chat. We can look at it. We can talk about it. We can go from there. I can help you out. Any questions?
No, I think I can get it done now after that lesson.
Great. Then I will see you guys Wednesday. In the comments last Friday, I asked if we wanted to move the time. The 3 or 4 people that responded said, I'm used to it. Leave it alone. So we're leaving it at 9. We'll meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9. Go from there. Okay? We don't have very many weeks left, guys. So
Oh, no.
I know. So keep up the great work. I really, really, really do appreciate you guys getting in, tuning in.
Can't wait till school ends.
Me either, Brecken. But until then. All right?
Just want to sleep in.
So until then, you guys keep up the good work, and I will see you Wednesday morning at 9. Okay?
All right.
Get those assignments done. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Say, do I need to help with anybody? Do I need to stay?
Can you check if